Welcome to the AI Chat podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined with Mack Wallace, who is a senior director, head of financial products at MPOWER Financing, which is a leading provider of student financing to international and DACA students. His area of expertise is the use of new methods in data and analytics in highly regulated areas of consumer finance, including credit underwriting. Mr. Wallace, also Mr. Mack Wallace. He also serves as the external advisor at both the Aspen Institute and the World Bank, where he researches and publishes on the use of data and technology to advance financial inclusion and customer protection. Welcome to the show today, Mack.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm super excited to have you on. What I'd really love to kind of kick this off with is asking you a little bit about your journey. What got you into this space to begin with? Did you always know you were going to be working in kind of this finance space and analytics and data and kind of, everything you're seeing in AI today? Or tell us a little bit about your journey. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today.
A Netflix original film.
The Wi-Fi isn't working.
In the event of a global communications breakdown, do the following. Stay inside.
What just happened here is happening everywhere.
Avoid strangers.
We've all been deserted.
I don't trust them.
And most importantly, do not panic. Julia Roberts.
What happens next?
Mahershala Ali.
I knew something was coming.
Leave the World Behind. Rated R. Now playing only on Netflix.
Absolutely. Something that I knew from a very young age is a passion around helping people live better, financial, healthier lives. And ultimately, I discovered the best way of doing that was through data and technology. So my first exposure to financial products was in college. I worked abroad for a summer for a microfinance institution. And that really opened my eyes to the power of finance as a tool to improve people's lives. So, it's quite amazing firsthand to see the power, for example, of a light at night for someone who previously didn't have electricity made possible through a solar loan. So children studying, for example, women in the kitchen. And so that was really an eye-opening experience for me early on. Returning from college, I studied with a professor who was hands-on designing microinsurance and microcredit products. And that really got me in my first way using data tools like Stata, ArcGIS, and that really ignited that passion in technology and data specifically. My first job was in financial services, was actually for the government.
Okay.
I know many people wouldn't consider the government as a hotbed of innovation, though when I was there, it was. So I was one of the first employees at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created after the financial crisis to be a vanguard and to wield finance as that powerful tool as a force for good in the world. And that's where I really sunk my teeth into using data and technology into helping make better policy and also helping people, with their finances. When I left government, this was about 7 years ago now,
Okay.
I decided to focus once more on that problem around microcredit and how to use data and technology to expand access to better financial products. And ultimately, that's where I landed into fintech. So for that time, I've been working in fintech and really thinking about how do you deploy AI machine learning into expanding access to affordable credit around the world.
Very, very cool. Fascinating background. And yeah, going from the government sector to the private sector and everything you see there, I'm sure has given you a ton of insights. Something I'd love to ask you about kind of what you're working on now is, how does MPOWER Financing leverage AI to make credit underwriting more efficient and inclusive? You kind of mentioned that's kind of your goal and vision and what you're excited to work on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Great question. So for those not familiar with MPOWER, and through the introduction, you alluded to this, we've become a large provider of financing to international and DACA students. And so we solve for this gap that exists within the financial system. So if you're a US citizen, you can go get a student loan from the Department of Education or go to a US bank in order to get a student loan. But if you're one of the nearly 2 million international students in the United States or Canada, those options aren't accessible to you. And that's where we come in. So using machine learning and AI and new data sources, we've been able to build end-to-end a loan product that is really suitable and solves for these gaps that exist in the financial system. So we use AI machine learning throughout our customer journey in about 4 key areas. There's marketing, there's underwriting and verification, there's the onboarding process, there's account management as well. So for example, in underwriting and verification, we use new data sources and machine learning together within our credit model to approve more people, oftentimes without a credit history for a student loan, and to process a lot of the documents and other information that we need to verify as a part of the lending process. The impact has been pretty phenomenal through adopting AI and machine learning in our business.
Okay.
With our business, for example, we have a global platform. It's 100% digital and paperless, and we lend to people in over 190 countries. And the risk that we see is actually pretty low. So we are oftentimes at benchmark or beating our competitors in terms of fraud or non-payment.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
That's super cool. I mean, so I know you're at benchmark in compared to your competitors for fraud in other areas, because I'm sure a number of people would be like, oh, you're working in these certain areas, there might be higher risks. So that's incredible you've been able to achieve that. What I'm wondering is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've kind of faced there, and also in applying AI methods to, like, this is a highly regulated area, consumer finance. So what are some of the challenges that you've faced there and kind of with applying AI to this?
Absolutely. So the biggest challenge is one of responsibility. Lending is a high stakes use case, and that's why there's so much regulation and compliance as it relates to this. And that's because we bear a big responsibility around who gets money and who doesn't, and at what price that does happen. So financial services are ultimately this powerful force in the world to help people become homeowners, attend school, and access a number of other areas in their lives. So we need to be 99% sure that we are acting responsibly in our practices and conduct. So for us specifically, that is opening doors of economic opportunity for people who previously would not be able to get approved for a student loan. So about half of our customers are low, moderate income. Half are about our first generation college students.
Okay.
So these are people where, getting a loan from a bank really isn't an option. So we've been able to use new data and machine learning together to approve people who previously would not have been.
That's super cool. That's got to feel awesome that you're part of a mission that really is making such a big impact for people. I'm wondering, when it comes to the overall field of kind of machine learning, I'm wondering if you can share a couple insights on how machine learning, in your opinion, is kind of enabling new opportunities in fintech.
Absolutely. So it's the combination of both new data sources combined with advancements in machine learning AI, which I think are really exciting. In fintech, currently, I think the use cases related to credit and underwriting and expanding access to lower cost products is really exciting. Likewise, in insurance, the whole underwriting process, I think, has a lot of opportunity as you apply more advanced analytics to it. And then more broadly within the financial ecosystem, whenever you can lower costs to customers, you can bend the cost curve and make financial products that are better, lower price, more accessible to more people. And I think that is also really exciting in terms of the opportunity ahead for more people to gain access to the financial tools that previously have only been available to the wealthiest or high income people. So that's what I would say is, I think, really exciting and what's new on the new data aspect in particular. And I can dive deeper into this through the podcast. The CFPB is undergoing a rulemaking for open finance. And so what I'm most excited by in the years ahead is the availability of new types of financial data and the use cases that will become available over time.
That's fascinating. And I would love to kind of double click on that. Based off of what you're seeing now in regards to that, what do you kind of predict will happen in the future? What are some you're most excited about,
So open finance is something that I'm super excited by right now. And it requires standards and regulation, and for policymakers to lead a little bit here. Data and technology are the facilitating and enabling mechanism, but policy is also really important here and will enable that. So I'm really excited about use cases in the future where a person could see their entire financial life essentially in one hub. So think of a mint.com on steroids, where you're able to view all of your debts, all of your assets, your cash flow data, your payroll data, and you can have, you can give someone the superpower of understanding insights about themselves financially, and then pair them with products and services that are most suitable for them. So imagine like everyone in their phone has their own high net worth financial advisor coaching them on the best things to do. I think that's the future of financial services that open finance and new data will enable.
That is so incredible. I for one, I've been, a big fan of it. Used to be called Truebill. Now it's called Rocket Money, because I think Rocket Mortgage bought them. But then also Mint, same thing, right? So I've always been a fan of these apps where it like kind of gives you like a snapshot of all your personal finances in one place. But oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Once you start bringing machine learning into that and you start making this like a really holistic overview of all your finances. I was talking to someone one time that was like interested in starting a startup where they like wanted to, list all your assets. So like your car and your house and like your exact net worth based off of like the valuations of everything. But anyways, gathering all that data into one hub, like you said, and then being able to get like insights and suggestions on what to do. And it's like, maybe your AI looks at all your finances, kind of knows you better than you. And it's like, look, you typically pay this bill late, or look, you're like really cutting it close on your credit card payments every month, or whatever like your thing is, and being able to give you like customized advice for that would be incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Exactly. And I think that's the future that's in hand in the years to come as this data becomes open and available for analysis for these tools. I think we're at an exciting moment here.
Yeah, I agree with you. My question to you on that specifically, though, would be, and I guess this isn't that big of a deal. Right now, probably the biggest problem to the average consumer is like a financial advisor. They probably think that it's like expensive or out of reach, or they need a lot of money to access that. So it probably essentially opens it up. Because at first my thinking was like, oh, is this bad for like financial advisors? They'll lose their job because this takes over. I guess what's your take on that?
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance. Deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of switching your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling. Harness the best converting checkout and same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Stop leaving sales on the table. Discover why millions trust Shopify to build, grow, and run their business. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech23.
So part of it is cost. Another part of it is quality and trust. So a person needs to trust whatever the source of information is, the quality of the information. I think a parallel innovation here around generative AI and more than the content space is I think that advice and insights can be delivered to people both in real time, but also within the context that they feel most comfortable in. So I think that's kind of an adjacent space, but I think a space that's also very relevant right here.
Yeah, fascinating. It's going to be crazy to see how, AI and all of this really rolls out within finance. Now, I kind of alluded to this when I gave your bio at the beginning, your intro. you are an advisor at the Aspen Institute and at the World Bank. I'm wondering, based off of that, what are some of the key takeaways on advancing finance through technology? What are some of your key takeaways you've received or given in that kind of role?
Yeah, two come to mind right now. One is data and technology is important, but policy is just as important. And so I alluded to the CFPB's rulemaking on open finance. I think that's one example in many areas where regulators need to lead a little bit and shape the future of data and technology within the financial ecosystem, and de-risk things, so to speak, so that financial providers have confidence and know the rules of the road as it relates to other things. I think a area that is equally as exciting is the whole reg tech and supervisory space. So thinking about the use of data and technology for purposes of being the most compliant. And a trend that I've seen globally as well is financial regulators themselves becoming large users of machine learning tools. And I think oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this, we're so focused on use cases on the financial product level or implementing there. But our government and financial regulators globally are just as capable of deploying AI machine learning tools. And if you think about it, particularly in the consumer protection space, so much of oversight is reading a disclosure, reading through complaints. It's a lot of content. So advances in NLP and other related areas are really going to enable regulators to be superheroes, so to speak, and be able to parse through a lot of information and detect risks. And ultimately, when regulators do their job better, it means that people have more confidence in our financial system, that it's truly weeding out the bad actors and bad practices and helping people live better. And the good financial providers are also, showcased through that process as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think those are some good insights. Something else I want to ask you about, though, is really when we're looking at the financial sector and kind of consumer protection, I'm wondering, what role do you see AI specifically playing in consumer protection within the financial sector? We see a lot of banks, other people rolling different AI tools out there, but specifically when it kind of comes to consumer protection, how do you think AI is gonna play a role here?
Yeah. So there, on a few different levels. So within the fintech company, for example, I think you have the opportunity to monitor your own activity. I think you have the opportunity, as we do, to acquire and attract new customers, particularly those who come from underserved segments, and then be able to retain them over time. I also think from a consumer protection lens, going back to my reg tech comment, I think regulators will use a lot more of that data to monitor what's going on in the market and to ensure people are having good experiences with the financial providers that they engage and to highlight risks within the system. So on those two levels, I see benefits as it relates to consumer protection, both financial services providers being able to use these tools and regulators themselves.
Okay. Very, very interesting. So something that I think it's been kind of controversial for a number of reasons in a handful of different industries is kind of some of the considerations you have to make when you're using AI for credit underwriting specifically. And I know that, companies like Klarna or Pay Later, essentially the Pay Later companies, they've kind of had to wrestle with the best ways to go about doing this. But I'm wondering from your end, how are you guys approaching kind of the balance of, ethical considerations or all of that when it comes to using AI for kind of credit underwriting?
For sure. So the biggest ethical implication within credit underwriting, in my view, is the decision around who gets approved and who doesn't, particularly when you're using these advanced models, these new data sets. And I think it's clear around who's approved. The business case there is you're expanding access to credit that's affordable to new people. We're in that business. The Klarnas of the world and others would indicate that they're in that business. It's the people who are declined and the responsibility that we bear there and the ethical considerations. And ultimately, my view is we ought to help those people understand why they're declined and help them do better in the future. So a lot of the initiatives, for example, around credit credit card companies and other lenders providing access to the credit score and to the underlying information that they're making that decision on, I think are great steps to helping educate people to how they can be a better credit customer in the future. So I think those are some of the ethical considerations. I also know there's a lot right now related to explainability and black box models. And how do you convey those kinds of decisions to a customer? And here in the United States, regulators have come out with guidance indicating that use of machine learning does not reduce your obligation to explain what it is that you are doing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we do that, and I think there are ways of making models explainable to the end user and conveying, I think most importantly, how they can do better in the future.
Okay. You know what? I actually absolutely love your take on that, and I love your perspective, because I think what you said is so important, which is essentially when you talk about ethical considerations, like if you're trying to be fair, the best thing you can do is be transparent, right? Like if someone gets declined, explain why they got declined, explain how they can improve their credit, explain how they can kind of bring themselves, because of course the last thing you want is to extend credit to someone who isn't ready, who isn't capable of, repaying, and, you're making their credit situation worse. And of course there's like I think the ethical part of this, or where some people complain or think it's controversial, is kind of like, well, your company only extends credit to like this certain segment of the population is, statistically receives less credit from your company. And it's kind of hard because it's like, on the one hand, you could be like, okay, well, we're going to put in like special rules that we're just going to approve different people no matter what disproportionately. I mean, you can kind of look at, and I know this is all controversial, but like affirmative action in college, that was the method, right? There was certain segments of the population that weren't getting into college. So they had certain actions to help increase the numbers there. And it's got its own thing, but you could see the same kind of thing happening with applying credit and companies. And the problem, I'm sure, which people see is, if you give someone credit in a highly regulated industry like finance, or if you extend that credit to them and they're not ready for it and they're not a good customer for it, like it's a lot more difficult than just saying, okay, we're just going to give it to people anyways because they're underserved or because they traditionally don't get it. So I love your answer on transparency. I think that's the solution. Really being transparent and helping people know why, not having that black box situation, and knowing what they could do to improve and access that. So I love your take on that, and I think that's really, really cool. I'm wondering,
absolutely,
based off of everything you're seeing kind of in the industry, what are some emerging trends in AI that you think are going to kind of significantly impact the financial industry in the next, let's say, 5 years?
For sure. A few of them that I'm really excited by that I think are high impact here. One is around all the advances with generative AI. We are piloting use cases within our company related to making our relationship managers, superheroes, and giving them superpowers as it relates to being able to parse through a lot of customer inquiries, respond to things automatically, give them the power at their fingertips. And I think that's really going to remake customer service in the years to come and how people interact with their financial providers. I think the Erica, which is a voice assistant from Bank of America, I think the things that we've seen in the past few years are only the beginning of this trend of what we're going to see in the years to come. I think the second is open finance. So every financial provider should be thinking about, in the years to come, as more data becomes available, how do you become the hub for a user and provide your customers more insights? And that could be cross-selling them new products. It could be strategic partnerships with other companies to share products and bundle products together. But I think a lot more use cases will be enabled there in the years to come as a result of that. And then there's also a big consideration here around new customers. So how do you think about using these technologies to acquire new customers? There are, for example, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of new people coming to the US, Canada, Europe every year. How do you think about targeting and acquiring new customers and really thinking about your product suite in a financially health-focused way and more of a financial outcomes perspective? And so I think the winners in this next phase in fintech and financial services will be those who ride those trends in the years to come.
Okay. Yeah. I think those are some good insights. It'll be interesting to kind of follow along, but I think you're right on that. Listen, as we are wrapping up this interview today, the last thing I would love to ask you about is, based on your experience, where do you see the future of AI in finance heading? What are some pieces of advice that you feel like you could give to, maybe companies looking at in the financial sector or other sectors looking at implementing AI into what they're working on? I guess what's a piece of advice you feel like you could give?
For sure. First of all, the future of machine learning and AI in financial services is really bright as more data becomes available and the analytics and the tools get that much better. I think it can be overwhelming to know where to start. And so what I really encourage the companies, mentors, or other people I connect with is take an iterative approach. Our underwriting model took years to develop, and you don't need to develop the most performative machine learning AI model in 3 months. You can take things in iterations and improve things through a continuous improvement cycle and loop as you go. So that would be my advice. Don't boil the ocean, start small, and let it snowball from there.
I love it. That is some incredible advice, Mack. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. If people want to find out more about, or connect with you or find out more about MPOWER, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. Go to MPOWERfinancing.com. That's our website. Follow us on LinkedIn, and you're always available to email me. Maybe we can add my email address in the podcast description.
Yeah, sounds great. Mack, thank you so much for coming on. These have been incredible insights to the listener. Thank you so much for tuning in to the AI Chat podcast. Make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts and have a fantastic rest of your day.